Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization, and I want you to stop low bar squatting. What? But the low bar, it's my friend. But one time in summer camp, when all the other kids made fun of me, I had to sit by myself. Low bar came over and hugged me and sat next to me, and low bar was like, hey man, I know what you're going through. I don't even want to say anything. I'm just here with you no matter what. And I was like, damn, low bar, just, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, you don't even have to say it, bro. But then later I show up, I watch this Dr. Mike video, and he's like, hey, stop low bar squatting. And low bar's like, hey bro, did you see that video? Weird, right? And you're like, yeah, totally. He's like, you're not gonna stop squatting with me, right? And you're like, yeah, hey, I'm like, listen, I'm breaking up. I'm going through a tunnel. Click. Watch more Dr. Mike videos. So let's see what the fuck I have to say. Stop low bar squatting. First, there are upsides to low bar squatting. There are good things about it. Number one, because low bar reduces the length of the lever arm away from your center of gravity by putting the weight lower on your shoulders, down close to your traps, then across the rear delta is the technical term. What ends up happening is, in result, you can lift more weight. You can lift more external load, which makes it perfect for a sport like powerlifting, where the only thing you're measured on is your ability to lift external load. Then low bar is awesome. So if you just want to lift a shitload of weight in the gym, or if you're trying to compete or at least train for powerlifting, low bar absolutely is the way to go. That being said, low bar has some downsides, especially when viewed from the perspective of people just trying to get big legs and just trying to get fucking strong. I assume that covers roughly 90% of you. To the other 10%, I say, hello, we'll have a diet video out shortly, so you don't have to keep watching this bullshit. Here you go. Low bar downsides. First, the quads are targeted relatively less. In an absolute sense, you can get just as good of a quad workout from low bar squats as you can high bar squats. But you'll get that same good workout with 50 more pounds on your fucking back. And much more involvement of the muscles of your posterior chain. Hamstrings, glutes, lower and mid back. You're paying a bigger cost for the same stimulus. That's what I mean by targets the quads less. To the end of the stimulus, next point. The fatigue that you are getting is higher in axial fatigue. Axial fatigue is the fatigue generated by squishing your spinal cord. When there's more weight and your spine is asked to bend further forward, it absorbs more force and it tires you out in a special axially fatigue loading way. You can try your axial fatigue chops by trying to deadlift twice a week heavy for 3 weeks. And at some point, you're going to try to pull on 135 pounds and it's going to be like, it's just not going to move. And you're going to be like, oh my God, this is the heaviest fucking plate on the side I've ever lifted. How the fuck did this happen? That's axial fatigue. It's separate from other fatigue, but it bleeds into systemic. Another problem, part of the same problem. Not only is the axial fatigue higher because of the bigger loads and more having to lean forward and use the muscles of the back in the low bar squat, you're involving more musculature. You're involving more glute activity. You're involving more hamstring activity and more spinal erector activity in the low bar squat than in the high bar squat, because those muscles are now better leveraged to help you lift. Huge benefit. You get to use more muscle mass to help you lift, which means you lift more weight. Hey, success. But the bad thing is that if we're only targeting the muscles of the legs, specifically like the quads and the adductors, when maybe some of the glutes when we squat, when we do squatting motions, if we're now doing low bar motions, the extra fatigue on the back and the hamstrings at least, and the extra weight that you're using increases your systemic overall fatigue, nervous system fatigue and cytokine fatigue and local muscle damage. All that sums up to be more systemically fatiguing. To put it in a better way, maybe more succinct way, low bar squats beat your ass more. And for the same hypertrophic stimulus to the quads, potentially, sometimes even a little worse, but at best the same, you have to wonder why we're paying this fatigue cost. But it doesn't end there. The local fatigue problems are summative. They're additional to these. Specifically, low bar squatting at some point as you get more jacked has a high probability, not 100%, of beating up your wrists. Okay, because holding in a weird wrist position fucks your wrists up. It doesn't fuck them up in the sense that it causes irreparable damage. It just makes them sore. And that can interfere, at least in the few months that it takes your wrists to get used to this, with everything else you do in the gym. Kind of annoying. Elbows. If you fixed your wrist position, sometimes you can do it at the expense of your elbows. Your wrists are good, but now your elbows are taking the strain. Elbows start to take it. You finally fix your elbows, and now your shoulders start to take it. The wrist, elbow, shoulder kind of triple arc there, something's getting fucked. It's like a big ass security guard walks into your fucking jail cell and there's 3 of you in there, prisoners of war or something. He's like, one of you motherfuckers is getting an ass beating. Who's it going to be? And you both point to the same person. Like, fuck you, Frank, get over there. Take that baton. Someone's getting it. And it can be a bit of all 3. It can be just the shoulders because your wrists are put in a position, elbows put in a position to save them, but then it taxes your shoulders. Is this going to happen for everyone? No. Can you learn to overcome it and over time get better at it and it's not a problem? Yes. But generally speaking, especially as you get bigger, it becomes more and more of a probability, and the possibility that it becomes a chronic thing increases in probability. So what I'm saying here is like, there's a chance that you get wrist pain at first with low bar, it goes away and it never comes back. Big chance, good chance, probably the more often thing. But the least common thing that definitely tends to happen enough for me to mention it is your wrists start hurting and then they hurt worse and then they hurt worse and then they hurt worse and they just always hurt. And you have to stop low bar squatting altogether or you just like scream during sets from how much your wrists hurt. I've had that happen with my elbows. The bigger you get, the more squished in you get, the more probability rises for you just not being able to use low bar squats because they're just going to fuck you up. Like that's just what they do. And not only is the posterior chain getting trained more and the quads relatively less, nice, but even when we try to train the posterior chain by itself, the quality of the workout the posterior chain gets from low bar squatting is low, but the fatigue is substantial. The stimulus to fatigue ratio of the posterior chain work involved in low bar squatting sucks. So not only does it not train your posterior chain well, but it saps energy from it by causing local and systemic fatigue and axial fatigue, all 3 actually. Local fatigue to your muscles, systemic fatigue to like, fucking this is lifting a lot of weight, and axial fatigue to muscle of the spine or paraspinal muscles and the spine nervous system sensors themselves. Once you get all that, now you have to take that whole mess of high fatigue and take it into your posterior chain training. If you're doing high bar squats, stiff-legged deadlifts in the same week are not a problem because the overlapping muscles include the glutes, and that's kind of just it. If you are doing low bar squatting, plus you're doing stiff-legged deadlifts or high bar good mornings or something, that now poisons the well for the posterior chain work, and you come in there with slightly tired posterior chain muscles, tired back, tired glutes, tired hams. The whole trifecta is fucking gone, and not gone, but like degraded. And so the quality of your specific posterior chain workouts degrades. So let's just take a real quick stock of what we got going on. Low bar squats degrade the average quality of your quad and adductor work because they demand a higher price and fatigue be put on it. And they also pepper in just enough of the fatigue for the movements that include posterior chain for the part of the movement and the low bar squat that taxes the posterior chain such that it screws up to some marginal extent your posterior chain as well. It's like if you eat a bunch of delicious food with a ton of garlic in it right before going on a date, not only does that shit spoil your appetite for the date food, so she's like, oh, this is such great pasta, and you're sitting there like, yep, sure is. And she's like, why aren't you eating? You're like, I don't know, man, I'm just a serious guy. Eating's for fucking humans, bro. And then she's like, okay, that's weird. Fuck it, let's make out. She tries to make out with you and you fucked yourself again because the garlic breath. And she's like, oh my God, you taste like Mario and Luigi combined into one.
What do you get when PhD sports scientists collaborate with pro bodybuilders? The most effective muscle growth training app ever made. Get yours now.
It's a garlic breath. Has there ever been a more egregious ethnic stereotype than Mario and Luigi? What the fuck? Bro, if I was a full-blooded Italian, which, hey, Philly, I sort of am, I'd be furious. How dare you say that all of us are pizza-mongering pipe cleaners with profoundly amazing mustaches? That's pretty much all of Italy. Scott, the video guy, just asked if I've ever watched the live-action Super Mario Brothers. Pause. If you've never seen it and you are a recreational marijuana user, whatever amount of pot you usually use, double it, watch that shit when you're high. Bro, you're not going to be able to tell fucking reality from fantasy. It is one of those movies where you watch and you were like, what were they thinking? And also, the way you saw the Koopa Troopas in your head off of the graphics when you played the game in the 80s and 90s, they rendered them to be the most disturbing versions of that you didn't even think were possible. I would say more about it, but none of it's politically correct. Godless bastards that ruined Mario. In any case, lastly, if you are just trying to get stronger for yourself or bigger for yourself, you're not competing in sport, low bar may not be a wise choice for all of the reasons that I've listed. If you like doing it, if it comports well with your goals, and if it doesn't hurt you in any way or really the systemic stuff doesn't bother you a ton, you're a beginner or intermediate, that can happen. Listen, you have my full blessing to train low bar squats. If you just like them and they work for you, great. But if you're thinking, hey, and this is a question we get tons at RP, should I do low bar? And this is someone who just wants to get generally strong or generally big or even physique athletes. Our answer is probably not, for the reasons given. Disagree? Get at me in the comments. Agree and want more nerd shit, or disagree and want more nerd shit? We'll see you guys in the part of our YouTube that is members only, just a small monthly fee, and you get tons and tons of bonus content. And of course, if the bonus content is something you're really into, and you're really into getting your technique analyzed by a group of experts, including myself in a private forum, the Team Full Round Forum, link right below, get in there. Folks, again, it pains me to remind you of this, but seemingly you need to be reminded. The Lamborghini was invented, and it has not gotten to the level of technological development yet where like an app, it's just free. It costs an unbelievable amount of money I need to get to my butlers so they can buy me the Lamborghinis so I can know that I have Lamborghinis but be too rich to interact with them, because what kind of rich people know shit about cars? That's some low-class shit. Get me money so I can buy Lambos. It frustrates me endlessly to need to remind you this. Damn it. See you guys next time.